During his campaign, do you think he emphasized on his fight against corruption? Now he's going to be 1 year in office on May 29. How do you think, this anti-corruption fight by his has been emphasized in his administration?
Well, let me start by saying that whether President Tinubu promised Nigerians anything during his campaigns in anti-corruption or not, he has a statutory and a constitutional obligation to fight corruption to a standstill. And having stayed 1 year in office, I haven't seen any innovation. I have not seen any change different from what the former presidents were doing, especially if you look at the work of the EFCC, still the same usual, taking people to court and a whole lot of things being discussed in the media, and even suits that don't appear to have been so very well prepared for. And then the continuing issues around, even like recently they were emphasizing on people who were spraying money and chasing them all around the place, leaving the bigger, weightier cases that Nigerians should have loved them to look at. And you look around the things that have happened in the National Assembly recently in terms of the allegations of budget padding and the money that was distributed to them for palliatives, that will not talk to you about that's not about an anti-corruption regime. And you look at even some of the decisions being made in the judiciary that really unravels the whole concept of justice, that you begin to ask whether these things have been properly done, and even issues around nepotism at the highest levels in the judiciary, people bringing their brothers, sisters, children, wives, cousins, to appoint them to high judicial offices. So it's difficult for me to pigeonhole anything for with the administration, because the administration here, it's not just about Bola Tinubu alone. The judiciary is involved, the legislature is involved. There is really nothing to celebrate so far in terms of the fight against corruption.
More like this is like a zero, but there are cases where he had even suspended one of his ministers. One would look at Emefiele as somebody who is largely part of the APC, but here he is going through different trials. Does this not give us a platform?
No, suspension of minister. The minister was alleged to have been involved in high wire mismanagement of resources, or attempt to mismanage resources. Since she was suspended, and the committee was set up to look into the matter and make recommendations to the president. How many months has that been? There was expectation by Nigerians that in 2 weeks or highest 3 weeks, the committee should have referred it to the president, because as we still speak today, we don't know whether she's been sacked. She's neither been sacked, and neither has she been recalled. That's not the way to fight corruption. It became what she did, or what she was planning to do, became too open that nobody in good conscience could allow her to continue. But has she been sacked? I put the question to you. Has she been sacked? Has she been called back? So there is this dilly-dallying around the question. You mentioned some other thing about Emefiele. You should by now have known the facts without bringing it up here, because it's like you're asking me to say what you already know. You knew that Bola Tinubu, as a candidate of APC, said that the change of currency, the redesign of currency was targeted at him. He said it before the election. So he had already, Emefiele to him had become public enemy number one. So somehow he was declared winner of the elections. So it's not surprising that his countless charges, they started with 1, 2, is becoming, what the number of charges and the number of allegations they're bringing is beginning to look a little bit ridiculous. I had expected them to take their time, find out what he has done wrong, and then bring him before the law courts. That you are charging Emefiele to court doesn't say anything. Was he the only person who was part of the Buhari administration? Assuming without considering that he was very corrupt, was he the only one? So there is still this issue of selectivity, okay? A lot of people who have been accused blatantly of committing corruption in the former regime, nobody has touched them. And of course, a number of things that could be attributed to the former president, nobody's talking about them. named Muhammadu Buhari. So in essence, how do you call that, give that a pass mark in the fight against corruption? I don't see that as a pass mark.
All right. Now, so you are part of it, like, because many people, including the opposition party, have called what he's doing to Emefiele as a witch hunt, just like you said. There are other people in the cabinet, Buhari's cabinet, that have very terrible.
Of course. I'm not saying it's a witch hunt. Yes, if Emefiele committed an offense, let the court decides. But today, you drag him before one court, bring 4 or 5 charges. As he's getting bail, preparing to defend, you take him to another court, bring another set of charges. They impose new bail conditions. As he's trying this, what I'm saying is that it's beginning to look like, I'm not saying Emefiele is innocent, because I'm even angry at how he ran the central bank, particularly the way the currency redesign was handled. But when you begin to file as many charges as possible, get bail here, rearrange here, get another bail, vary the conditions, it's beginning to appear like you simply want to nail him at all costs. I'm not defending him. Where are the other persons who served in Buhari's administration? Where are they? With all the claims that Tinubu himself said that the economy was in tatters, the whole place was mismanaged when he came in. That's what he said. Was it just Emefiele who mismanaged the economy? Only him? I'm not satisfied so far. I'm not satisfied. That cannot be evidence of the fight against corruption. That is evidence of personal vendetta, of saying, oh, this guy tried to stop me when I was struggling to be president. Now I'm president, I have to show him my presidential powers. That's my understanding of what is happening.
All right, so now that brings me to the instrument we use to fight graft in this country, the EFCC and the others. Do you think they are well equipped to do their work under Tinubu? Do you think the president needs to do more in these anti-graft agencies?
Their leaders have been appointed. They are getting their budgetary allocations. I also know donors are supporting them. So it's up to them to stand up and work. They're supposed to be independent. I don't think they should be waiting for the president to give them specific orders to say prosecute A or prosecute B. But what I wouldn't like to hear is that maybe they've decided to prosecute Mr. A or B and there are orders from above saying discontinue. That will be a very dangerous sign. But for now, I don't think we've seen any case so far, to the best of my knowledge. I've not heard of any. But I'm saying that they can do far better than they are doing now. You recall that there was this particular case where somebody was discharged and they were alleging that the lawyers who handled the case on behalf of EFCC almost bungled the case. So these are not the kind of things we want to hear. We want to see an EFCC and ICPC that is systematic. That before they go to the media to say we are charging A or B, they have taken their time, they've done all the investigations, compiled a watertight case. Because it's very often in Nigeria, many people who were alleged, who had media trials, were alleged to have committed heinous crimes, particularly in corruption, get away with it. The cases collapse like a pack of cards before judges. That is not what we expect. Before you come forward to just scandalize somebody or even make concrete statements, make sure you have all the facts to be able to at least move beyond when you finish your evidence, they say there's no prima facie case, no case submission, and then the case collapses. That's not the level I expect EFCC and ICPC to continue.
Okay, now with him picking Olukoyode as his chairman to head the EFCC, do you think there's a presidential interference in the operations of the Olukoyode guy?
No, you are talking about the current chairman of EFCC.
Yes.
Whether there is any presidential interference.
Do you think the president, especially him, picking him, and again, despite some, arguments, even you were also part of the one.
Yes.
But as I said, he wasn't really fit for that office.
Yes.
Do you think now that he had still been confirmed and he's now sitting there as the EFCC chairman, do you think, in his operations that there are presidential interference?
I don't have any evidence to talk about presidential interference. And all I'm saying is that they can do far better than they are currently doing by doing more thorough and in-depth investigations and making sure that all those billions that we've been regaled that we are missing under the Buhari presidency, all those monies that we didn't get value, I expect deep investigations and go after them and bring them to the court with good evidence that could possibly let them have their date in court, and the court should pronounce good judgments, whether they are good to go to prison or to reform money, whichever one that the evidence can support. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. The issue of whether he's qualified in the first place, we've gone beyond that because he has been approved and he's sitting there. So the important thing now we should focus on is more of performance rather than talking about his qualification.
All right. Before I ask you the last question, EFCC sent out a... Okay.
Sorry. Is this noise disturbing?
No, it's not interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. EFCC sent out a statement that was some months back warning the public of interference whenever it goes for its sting operations, just like what happened during when they appeared before Yaya Bello's house. But Ododo was fingered as one who came to pick Yaya Bello under immunity. Now, with this, okay, is it because of the that's the immunity thing that even though everybody knows it was Ododo that came to pick Yaya Bello, do you think the immunity thing should still be protecting Ododo because everybody has seen what he did as a criminal offense, and I don't know.
Well, the Constitution granted the office of the governor immunity. So until he leaves office, you can't begin to talk about prosecuting him. But what he did was an abuse of office, which ideally his State House of Assembly should have called him to order if it is in a proper democratic society. Okay? Even these operations that we are doing, particularly in the universities, chasing the so-called Yahoo boys and girls, some of us were feeling that it was a Gestapo style of coming into a hostel in the night, breaking down doors, threatening people at gunpoint, was not the ideal way. There could have been more polished and civilized ways of doing things. And if the resources available to EFCC were like, say, 1 billion or 2, how should they prioritize? How will they prioritize? Do they go after Yahoo boys? I'm not saying what they're doing is good. Or should they go after men and women who have stolen billions, running into trillions from the treasury? So for me, it's a question of drawing up a scale of preference and prioritizing. And if I were in charge, I will not simply waste my time with these so-called Yahoo boys. I will go after the bigger tips and get them, into the net. Otherwise, the impression being created is like you are meeting a stop with the bigger tips. You don't know what to do with them, or they're almost overwhelming you. Therefore, you find areas of least resistance, people who sprayed money at parties, okay, and go to court. And funny enough, somebody goes to court, pleads guilty, doesn't waste the time of the court, please allocators to say please, and you still give him the maximum punishment or penalty. That's not the kind of thing. Well, that's the business of the court. It's not EFCC, but that's not the kind of things Nigerians expect. We expect those who have mismanaged the economy, those who drew down 20-something trillion in ways and means, and we can't find where they spent it. These are the people we're expecting to be called to account to say, you took 23 trillion in ways and means through the central bank. Tell us where you invested it. If they can't account for it, you say, please, gentlemen and ladies, return this money. So we shouldn't be wasting our time here. There should be a scale of preference. There should be an order of priorities. Otherwise, the way we are going about it is not fair enough.
All right, sir. Now, my last question to you will be, Tinubu still has 3 years. What do you think he's supposed to do within these 3 years to make his anti-corruption fight at least maybe different from what we have been seeing, or maybe
institutional structures? Okay, let the fight against corruption be institutionalized. It shouldn't be driven by persons or individuals. For instance, I don't expect him to interfere whenever the EFCC or ICPC is going after anybody. Secondly, issues like empowering the office of the Auditor General, so that they can be bringing out more facts, to support anti-corruption charges. Issues of equipping EFCC and EFCC with more resources so that they can do their job in a more efficient manner. Okay? These are the kind of things. Producing quarterly reports of budget implementation, making sure nobody passed the budget at the time the budget is being prepared before approval. These are the kind of things. And then following procurement due process, because if you're even saying the fight against corruption, you know the scandal about the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road. There's no evidence of due process being followed, either in public procurement or environmental assessment. The other day, after they demolished Landmark, they now went and made telecommunication cables. And suddenly they now decided, oh, we have to, for kilometer 25 to something, about 24 kilometers, we have to change the right of, we have to move around those cables instead of demolishing.